Tiny Epic Defenders. This is a tiny game. I picked it up at Origins last June. So now it's October. I've had it for a couple of months. I guess it's so small it kind of blended in the background. I forgot about it a little bit. But finally got around to play it. Tiny Epic Defender. Actually, when I put it on the table, I was pretty excited because I really liked the first game in this line, Tiny Epic Kingdoms. This is not exactly the sequel. It is just a game with some similar design ideas and a similar setting. It is still set in a fantasy world with a lot of different races and characters with special powers. But while Tiny Epic Kingdoms is competitive, this game is completely cooperative, which also means can be played solo. In this game, the player or players are defending a central region in the middle of the board, or I should say the table. There's not exactly a board. In the middle of the table, as monsters are coming in a fairly abstract fashion from the outer regions and are inflicting damage here and there. So the heroes move around, defend against the monsters, and try to heal the damage that the monsters cause. Not a new idea from Defenders of the Realm to other games, Hack in a Sense, even the State of Siege games by Victory Point Games have the similar idea that you're defending a central area and bad people are coming from all around you. So it's not a new idea, but let's see how this game handles it. Each player in this game controls a character indicated by a card with a track to record the changing level of health of the character and then a special ability for each character. There is a variety of characters that you can choose from, as you can expect from a game that is related to the Tiny Epic Kingdoms, and here is chosen the Paladin and the Sorcerer. You place a heart there to indicate the level of health that is set, but it also indicates the color of the meeple that you will control and that will represent you on the board. The board is formed by a capital city, which is the most important card, is the one that you are defending, and then 6 cards representing outer regions. Now, these 2 regions that are by the shorter sides of the card are considered to be adjacent to this capital city, and then these other cards are considered to be adjacent to these ones in this way here. Now I place them so that the cards adjacent to one another are touching. That is, if this character wants to go here, has to go boom, boom, or in this case, boom, boom. But this card actually has a special ability that would allow the character there to spend an action point and to move to any region. We'll talk about those abilities later, but each card has one such ability. Then we have a deck of cards that contains a mix of cards. Some cards are action cards that are used to activate your characters, and some other cards are enemy cards that indicate the regions in which the enemies are attacking and are wreaking havoc. The art really is not that important. It's not important at all. Only the symbols here at the bottom are. And as you can imagine, when a card indicates a certain region, an enemy card indicates a region, then bad stuff happens in that region. Each region has a track to keep track of the level of destruction that there is there. And all outer regions start at the level of destruction that is 1. The capital city has level 0. Each time that a city is hit by an enemy, that the region is hit by an enemy, then the destruction increases. When the destruction gets all the way to the top of the track, then you take a card from the destruction deck. It is simply formed with all the enemy cards and the action cards that you're not using, because in any case now you're only using them face down. That side doesn't matter, and you simply use them face down to indicate that the region is destroyed. A destroyed region is still there, you can still move in it, you can still defend against enemies, but you cannot use the special ability. Also, if a region that is destroyed is hit by an enemy, as indicated by this deck, then the damage goes to the capital city instead. But I mentioned defending against enemies. If you are in a region that is being attacked by an enemy, due to the symbols on the enemy card that you just drew, then you can choose to defend, which simply means you take a hit, you lose a health point, and the region doesn't increase its level of destruction. As I said, also region characters have special abilities. Some may be abilities that do happen, for example, when the character is defending against enemies. Now, what I mentioned, you take a hit so that the level of destruction doesn't go up, only applies to regular enemies, which would be these ones. Other enemies are called dire enemies, and as the name says, they're much meaner than that. They have special abilities, they have all sorts of bad stuff that they can create. In order to defend against a dire enemy, you need to take 2 hits, that is, you have to sacrifice 2 health points. On the other hand, if you do defend against dire enemy, then you get a treasure, you get an artifact from this deck. You simply shuffle these artifacts together at the beginning of the game, and then when you defend against a dire enemy, you draw the artifact, you read the instruction, and simply you can use the ability of the artifact. Whenever the ability applies, you gain the benefit described in the card, and then the card is discarded. Artifacts can only be used once. So these are the basic ideas of the game. To give you a sense of how a round goes, you simply use this deck here, which is the turn deck, against, again, enemies and action cards, and you draw cards, and you record the changing level of destruction if you have drawn an enemy card. In this case, mountains and desert take a point of destruction. We increase that. Ta-da! Done. Then we have another card. Oh, now it's coast and desert. The desert is getting hammered pretty bad. Now here I have a paladin that could defend against that attack, so I decided I do want to defend. So I simply take a point of health from that paladin, so I do not have to raise the level of destruction there. Actually, I decided I want to use my special ability, the ability of the paladin, which says I may lose an additional point of health to restore a level of destruction in the region, or to heal somebody else. I decided I want to make the region look prettier and nicer, so I decrease the level of threats in the region. Yeah, I just realized that the cards say threat to indicate the level of bad stuff that's happening. I frankly prefer to call it destruction, but that's just my personal decision. Now, cards are in the deck that will activate your characters. This card activates the yellow character, which in this game is the paladin, so now the paladin gets a turn. When a character is activated, the character receives 3 action points, which can be used to perform, well, various actions. For an action point, you can activate the ability of the region in which you are, or for an action point, you can move. Now, it's very important to go to the capital city from time to time, because the action ability of the capital city is to heal. So if you spend an action point there, you can restore all of your health. Now, some heroes' abilities will also require action points. For example, the Sorcerer. For 2 action points, the Sorcerer may reduce the threat level of a region by 3. For an action point, you can use the ability of some artifacts that do require an action point. Again, action points to activate the ability of the city. Another thing that you can do is you can spend action points to restore the health of a region. For example, if I'm here, it's a bad example. If I'm there, I can spend an action point to simply decrease the level of destruction by 1 point per action, by 1 level, by 1 point per action point. I said that this region was a bad example because here you must spend health points instead of action points to succor. That's the technical term for healing, restoring the region. You succor the region, so let's succor it. There you go. I succored this region. Well, it's just a funny sounding word. Now, as you progress like this, you will go through all of the cards. So some cards will allow you to activate, and some cards will determine attacks from the enemies. Well, actually, there are also these cards here, which are interesting. They are team activation, group activation. As the text says, the players are given 3 action points to spend collectively. They can divide them among themselves, or 4 points per card if there are any destroyed regions. And in this example, there are. So now my characters get fraction points. I could split them among them in any way I want. Once you're done with the turn deck, that is, you went through all cards, adding damage to the regions, activating your people, defending when the enemies come, then we go to this other deck here, which is the Horde deck. The Horde deck is prepared at the beginning of the game. The bigger it is, the harder the game, and it is formed by a mix of regular enemies and dire enemies. You decide the quantity of dire enemies that go in there, but you do not know which ones are drawn from a specific deck. And so, at the end of each round, when this deck is depleted, you turn it face down, you take a card from there, and then you simply shuffle them all together, and now you're ready to start a new round. So simply repeat, activate, now I activate the Paladin, oh, some damage to these regions, and so on and so forth. At the end of this round, I think you imagine, you get another card, repeat the procedure. So you go on like this, round after round, until all the cards from that deck have gone there. Now the ratio between my cards, my activations, and all the nasty stuff that the enemies do is very different from the beginning. So the regions start getting a lot of hits, get destroyed, the capital city is likely to take some hits, and alas, this is one of the ways in which the game may end. The game ends if the capital city is destroyed. At that point, the capital city, well, is destroyed, and the players lose the game immediately. Also important, the capital city cannot be healed, restored. You cannot use the succor action. Damage on the capital city is permanent. But as you can see, there is another big card here. No, it wasn't just a holder for the Horde deck. It is the big bad villain of the game. Yes, at the beginning of each game, you draw a card from the big bad boss deck randomly, and that is the big bad boss that you will encounter at the end of the game. Once you're done with the deck, you went through the deck after there were no Horde cards there, then you reshuffle the deck again to start the new round, but now you also add the big bad guy. The symbol indicates where the guy goes, and well, and the card also tells you how many health points the enemy has. Simply put, you continue playing like before, but now you have an extra available action when you activate your characters. If there is a character in the region with the big bad guy, then you can spend a point to attack that character and to reduce the health of the character by 1. Suppose I'm here, decide to spend 3 points, 1, 2, and 3, and then I've attacked the monster by 3. And monsters, the big bad guys, have special abilities that can be pretty nasty. This guy, for example, restores to full health at the end of each round, so it's an all or nothing thing. The round that you decide to go against him, you just spend all of your resources, all of your energy to take him down, hoping that you can do so before too many of these bad guys come out of the deck. And this is how the game works. The capital city is destroyed, you lose the game, you manage to defeat the epic foe at the end of the game, then you win the game. So Tiny Epic Defenders. It has several of the advantages that I really liked in Tiny Epic Kingdoms. It has variable powers, a lot of different races and monsters. It has art which is pleasant. The game travels well. It is easy to play, easy to teach. And I have to say, it really has good replay value, because in each game you will not use all of the enemies or all of the dire enemies. You will have a different foe, you will have different heroes. which will work in different ways. Some combos are more powerful than others. So definitely the game will feel different from one game to the other. The monsters will tend to concentrate on certain regions rather than other ones. They're not always attacking the same region or regions. And actually, interesting enough, also the concentration of attacks during the game will change as the turn deck that determines the attacks that you receive will change throughout the game, becoming bigger. And you feel strangled by attacks. You start easy, you just move around, you slap these monsters in the face. Easy, you restore health to your regions, easy. But then towards the end is the opposite. Now, what I don't like much towards the end is that you may get to the final round with a pretty thick deck with your very few hero cards lost in there. And in that case, randomness really plays a huge event. Before then, you can kind of get a sense of how things are going. So randomness is there because you don't know the order of the cards, but you get a sense of the regions that may be attacked. You don't know exactly the order. You can kind of manage odds and risks based on that. Later, all bets are off. If your action cards are towards the bottom of the deck and the monster cards on top, in that final round, the monster will simply walk through the board, destroy all regions that they may not have destroyed yet, and inflict so much damage that they're likely to win the game. Or at least he can get very close, which is great. There's just that situation there. As the deck becomes thicker, randomness, luck, or misfortune will play a larger role. There's that shifting factor. So replay value is good because the game feels different from game to game in the general, I should say no, not in general idea, in some of the details. The general idea, the general frame remains the same, which is easy to grasp, easy to play. It may be a little too straightforward in terms of gameplay. I like straightforward gameplay, but this may be a little too much of a good thing. Because while replay value is pretty good, I found gameplay value to be somewhat underwhelming. I really did not enjoy this game as much as I enjoyed the Tiny Epic Kingdoms. I found the interaction with other people, the fact that the other people would really do things different from what I expected, and I could negotiate with them, and then they would still do differently from what we had negotiated. I liked that level of uncertainty much better. That dynamics was much more interesting because I really would not know what my opponents may do next, not just the order in which they will do it, which is what happens here. You don't know the order of the cards, but you know exactly what the opponents are trying to do. You know, for example, there are regions that you can completely forget about, and other ones where you need to sit all of your heroes there to form a wall. So there is that aspect there. The interaction with the board and with the AI and with the enemies does feel pretty abstract, does feel pretty dry. And probably the biggest problem to me is that there are so many tough decisions. Because the decisions seem pretty obvious, that is kind of the problem. If you have a region that is not being attacked and is pretty healthy, and another region which keeps getting hit, where you're gonna send your people? Ta-da! If you have a hero that goes down to 0 points of health, the hero is not dead. That is good. The hero keeps playing, it's just that the hero cannot attack, cannot defend. All that the hero can do is go back to the central city, the capital city, and use the action of the location to heal, to restore health. So if you're down to 0 points, what are you going to do? You're going to go back. It just seems that the game, by concentrating attacks in certain areas, by giving you pretty much one big task, which is spend action points and spend health to restore the region, it forms a cycle of actions which is a little too straightforward, a little too plain for me. Go out, spend your action points to attack regions, to attack or defend regions with other monsters. Spend your health points to defend against monsters, and or all of the above to restore the health of the region. You're down to 0 points. Go back, repeat, go back, repeat. It just feels a little too straightforward. Again, it's interesting that from game to game, yes, different combinations of monsters will determine different areas in which this happens, which means also different abilities for certain regions will come into play differently. But after a while, it seems to me that once you figure out the combo of actions and powers for the group of heroes that you have, then it becomes pretty automatic. Pretty much the obvious next thing or two or three to do are pretty obvious. It really becomes, I flip a card, tum tum, I adjust 2 regions, I flip a card, I adjust 2 regions, I flip a card, I adjust a region. Us, we go where it's obvious to go. Me, where I go where it's obvious that I should go. Monsters, adjust the region. Monsters, adjust the region. Something is missing. In Tiny Epic Kingdoms, I had a game that was simple, straightforward, but with different levels, different ways in which your character could grow, in which you could acquire power, in which you could be a pain in the neck to the other players. Here, Tiny Epic Kingdoms had a very good balance between simplicity and exciting gameplay. This is a game that is simple, this is a game that is straightforward, but somehow something seems to be lacking to me. I wish the game had some more flavor, some more chrome, but most importantly, some more decisions, some different ways in which gameplay could be exciting, and a different branch of decisions, or a larger group of decisions that you could choose from to get more interesting, well, decisions, to get more challenging moments when you are figuring out what to do next. So, Tiny Epic Defenders, something is missing. Something is missing to me to make this game really compelling. Maybe other expansions, but that's a pity. When I have a new game, I always hope that the game is good per se, and the expansions make it better, not that I hope the expansions will fix something or will add something that I feel is kind of required. It still has advantages because it's so simple and approachable. This could easily be a game that I will use with my young daughters to introduce them to the idea of cooperative games. I think the art is attractive, the story is fun, the theme is fun. This may be more attractive for my daughters than Pandemic when they're still young. If I were to play a cooperative game to show cooperative mechanics to non-gamers, this could be a gateway game for that, a gateway into the wonderful world of co-op games. But there is Pandemic for that too. So there are just other options that, frankly, may take a little longer to play, a little bigger, a little more expensive, takes more time to set up and put away, but just have more fun than this one. It's not bad, it's just okay, sort of, kind of okay. To me, something is missing, that's all. That's really my assessment of Tiny Epic Defenders. And before I forget, one last thing. I want to thank some viewers of my videos that have backed my Kickstarter campaign last summer. These viewers are Bjorn Eriksson, Hans Olaf Harding, Michel Journet, Stein Surland, and Tony Krohn. Thank you all 5 for backing my Kickstarter campaign, and thank you all my viewers for taking the time to watch my videos.